Hello there, my name is Landon Allison, and I would like to present to you today about hydropower. This presentation is for the environmental justice advocate, the engineer who's looking to gain knowledge of new power generation technologies, and the curious rural community leader who doesn't have much knowledge in this field, but still wants to do their part. So I want to begin with this right here. Now, this is just a bottle of water. It's tasty, it's fresh. I would place the value of this bottle at probably $2. If you were dropped in the desert tomorrow, however, this might not stay the same for price. If I wait a few days before I approach you with the water, then you might be willing to give me your whole wallet just for this bottle. So what does this have to do with anything that I want to present here? Well, value is important. It's kind of what our society runs on, you see. And one of the things that we place a lot of value in nowadays is electricity. Now, this modern good kind of touches almost everything in our lives. I mean, just looking around this room right now, the lights are powered by electricity. The device I'm using to record this video is powered by electricity. The device that you're using to watch it is powered by electricity. So it's safe to say that this is a pretty valuable resource. But to bring things full circle, what if I told you that this could produce that vital ingredient to modern day society? What if I told you that this could stave off a looming threat to our collective futures? Well, suddenly we seem a little more like that man stumbling through the desert, willing to give all he has for this bottle. So let's examine that. Though today's video will be on hydropower, I also want to acknowledge the other renewable energy sources. These are your wind power. There are wind turbines pictured here to the left. Your solar power, solar panels pictured here to the right, and your geothermal power. Geothermal power is harnessing heat from beneath the surface of the earth to go ahead and generate power. These are all vital components to the ultimate goal, which is to combat climate change. But today's video will be focused upon hydropower. Now, the reason why our renewable energy sources are so vital to us is that fossil fuels pose an existential threat. They, through their use, go ahead and release chemicals into the environment and contribute to greenhouse gases, which go ahead and contribute to climate change and the problems that it creates. So fossil fuels like coal, natural gas, oil, these are all ultimately harmful and what we are trying to get rid of through the use of renewable energy sources. Now, all this has a deadline. According to both the UN and the Australian government, the deadline that we have the best guess of is 2050. Now, this is a deadline for disaster. It may seem far off, it's not. Whenever it comes down to it, after this deadline, it's expected if we do not change our current trajectory, that sea levels will rise and flood coastlines, massive famines and droughts will occur, with areas having a rise in temperature that the plant life in those areas are not used to. And mass migrations of populaces will go further inland, depleting already strained resources during this time. So it is vital that we meet this deadline. Like I said, 2050 may seem far off. It's only 29 years away. This is an issue that we've been dealing with since the late 1800s. To put that into perspective, we've known that climate change was a possibility since the late 1800s. We had definitive proof in the early 1900s that it existed and was affecting our planet. So we've had over 100 years to get this done, and we have 29 years left to finish the job, and we haven't gotten very far as it sits. So we really need to get in gear in order to go ahead and stop climate change. Now, how do we do that? I propose we use hydropower. Now, there are multiple methods of hydropower. The first one that I would like to address is called run-of-the-river power. Run-of-the-river power works similarly to how those old water mills, like the one pictured to the left, how they work, which is that there is a running body of water usually in a river. It makes sense, it's in the name. And this turns a turbine or multiple turbines, because these are often bigger complexes. And through the turning of that turbine, it generates electricity. These are usually built on a decently large scale, so you need a larger river, but they're also a great option for rural communities that are more removed from access to power. For example, there are several such plants that were put in many small Nepalese villages to put them on a power grid because previously they had no access to electricity. These are called micro hydro plants, and they have worked to decent effect to help destitute rural areas. The second one I would like to address is called pumped storage power. Now, this works similar to a battery. Basically, this is extremely important because our battery technology has not advanced for decades, and our batteries are not capable of holding the energy necessary to power our cities and our appliances and so on and so forth while intermittent resources are down. Now, I use the term intermittent resources. These are your wind turbines, these are your solar panels, things that don't work all the time. Wind turbines only work whenever the wind is blowing. Solar panels only work whenever the sun is shining on them. So they don't provide a constant source of power. How do you store that power for later use? Well, you can use something like this. Basically, the idea is that the pump and generator here in gray goes ahead and pumps water in whenever there is more power being generated. Pumps water from the lower reservoir up to the upper reservoir. Now, during this intake of water, you're going to basically be storing the water at a higher elevation, and you're also going to have turbines stored within this pump and generator facility. This is so that whenever these intermittent resources are off and you need more power, you can let gravity go ahead and take the water from the upper reservoir back down to the lower reservoir, turning the turbines to generate electricity during the outtake. That's pretty much the purpose of pumped storage power. Dam storage power works along a similar method, but there's no active pumping of the water. This is because the dam is stopping the running of the water downriver, and it basically backs up the water source. Whenever the water is needed, it goes ahead, whenever the electricity is needed, it goes ahead and it releases water through channels where there are turbines. So this is a frequently used source, but it can damage water life through different temperatures being on either side of the dam and other habitat changes that water-based life is sensitive to. And this is so commonly used and such an effective method that we already know so much about that ultimately it can be a very important, very crucial method to combating climate change. The last one is one that is more underused than the rest. This is tidal power. Tidal power, there are multiple uses to generate tidal power. You have tidal turbines, which work along similar lines to the wind turbines that we saw earlier. Basically, whenever the water is coming in during a low tide to high tide episode, you have the turbines being turned through the intake of water. This is a very basic method and is one of the most commonly used, but you also have things like tidal barrages. They are basically put on the shores of large bodies of water, and it works similar to dams. But whenever they are changing water levels by using tides, then the tides come in and basically be put into the other side of the barrage. There are tidal lagoons. These are less damaging than tidal barrages. Tidal lagoons basically have an artificial structure on one side, meaning that you don't have a existing ecosystem on both sides of the structure, whereas barrages have an existing ecosystem that can be affected by the buildup of the tides and stuff not being let through. But the tidal lagoons are more theoretical. They're completely man-made structures that technically have yet to be built. There have been plans for them, but they have been canceled. Now, if you want a real-world example of the benefits of hydropower, look no further than Norway. Norway is one of the most extensive hydropower generation programs in the world. They are perfectly situationed to go ahead and be able to take advantage of hydropower. as they have many geographical features that are necessary for the generation of hydropower. 99% of their total energy production is through hydropower, and there have been plans to make Norway a green generator for Europe through the European Union. They already export a lot of renewably generated power, so this would make sense. They're basically a hydropower nirvana. Many of the aspects that they use could be used in countries like the US. I know that one of the biggest sources of hydropower that is undervalued and underused in the US is, for example, tidal power. We have 2 huge coastlines down the sides of our country that are very underused. And this is a free form of renewably generated energy that we are squandering. I believe that we can reach towards a cleaner and clearer future, one where we don't have to give up so many of the tools and structures we've come to rely upon, but instead alter them. The way we are heading now is unsustainable, with fossil fuels clouding our atmosphere and burning our planet. But there's another path, one that uses resources we do already have access to in order to maintain our current living standards. This bottle has immense potential, and humanity is currently wandering through the desert. We have not yet reached the point of no return, but we are precariously close. I say we take the bottle. What would it cost us? Not our whole wallets, not even $2. It would only cost us our time and our interest. So if we invest efforts in a cleaner, clearer tomorrow, one that can be led by hydropower, we are securing that tomorrow for ourselves, our children, and our children's children. Thank you very much.